So when we go back over to those rapture timings, if you look at this, the post-tribbers stand out like a sore thumb. They're the only ones who put the church, the classic ones, who put the church in the middle of the wrath of God, as you can see from the circle I drew. When you look at the post-tribbers, they have the rapture here prior to God's wrath being poured out. See how they're separate? The rapture takes place in front of God's wrath. So in the pre-trib model, the church is exempted from the wrath of God. Likewise, in the mid-trib rapture, they have the rapture here, and God's wrath is poured out here. So therefore, again, they are separated. Likewise, we Prewrathers, we've got a rapture here, and we've got God's wrath here, and therefore we are also separated. So the pre-trib, the mid-trib, and the post-trib, we are all in agreement. Prewrath rapture, mid-trib rapture, and pre-trib. Oh, wow, that's a horrible circle there. Sorry. We're all in agreement. But look at the post-tribbers. Nope. They're like, nope, gonna X you guys out, right? May as well make just a bow tie there since I follow up there. They're like, nope, you're not excused. You're gonna go through it. You may as well just double down because God's gonna have to protect you in place. So that's where we got some disagreement between the different positions. Let's keep going. I've got about 6 minutes left. I think I might be able to get through this. Let me take a look at it. Yeah, I may as well take a stab at it. Why not? There's no reason to extend it into one more week. I go on to say, well, Dr. Brown goes on to say, there's no possible pre-trib reading of 2 Thessalonians 1 that works. HaNaviy says, yeah, bummer for them, huh? In case you're not aware, it is common knowledge among post-tribbers that pre-tribbers have to really kind of recapitulate and speculate and insinuate and eisegete when it comes to 1 Thessalonians, Paul's letter in 1 Thessalonians. They really get tripped up because there's a lot of language in the 2 Thessalonian letter that honestly is almost impossible to miss that Paul's talking about a rapture. And yet the pre-tribbers, and in so doing, Paul talks about how the Antichrist shows up on the scene before this gathering event. And so in so doing, Paul seems to be at face value describing not only a rapture, but he also gives some sequencing. He says the man of lawlessness shows up first. He says it in the way that, hey, that day is not going to come, and that day is the day of the Lord / the rapture / the resurrection, meaning the event that kicks off the day of the Lord. That day will not come unless the man of lawlessness shows up first. And so the post-tribbers have to scramble because they're like, we got something showing up prior to the rapture. And remember, according to their view, the rapture is signless. There shouldn't be anything in front of it. And yet Paul's describing a sign in the form of the man of lawlessness. And so this throws the pre-tribbers into a loop. And so they have to scramble to come up with some different ways to do kind of theological gymnastics as to explain how Paul's still talking about the rapture, but he's not talking about a precursor event or something like that. It just gets really convoluted. So that's why Dr. Brown says quite confidently in point number 26, there's no possible pre-trib reading of 2 Thessalonians 1 that works. And I'm like, yeah, okay. By the way, 2 Thessalonians completely harmonizes not only with a post-trib rapture, but it also harmonizes with the pre-wrath rapture. Both of them without problem. Yeah, no problem at all. Let's keep reading Dr. Brown's responses so that I can respond to Dr. Brown. We receive relief when Jesus is revealed in flaming fire to judge the ungodly. Again, what does HaNaviy say? Agreed. We Prewrathers interpret this relief as occurring when the rapture cuts short the Great Tribulation of Antichrist and initiates the day of the Lord. Such relief, remember this relief word is Paul's words, these aren't Dr. Brown's words. This relief still allows time for the day of the Lord activities to run their course over the space of at least 5 months. Additionally, in the larger context of the Parousia / apokalypsis, a significant relief will be experienced at the end of chapter 19 when Yeshua finally brings the Antichrist and the false prophet to their final end at the Battle of Armageddon, after the 7 trumpets, after the 7 bowls, and after the 30 days of Daniel 12:11. So when I look at this, no, I don't need that anymore. When I look at this chart, Let me just show you some things. If the rapture takes place here prior to the day of the Lord being poured out, let me just separate the day of the Lord out for a second, then what we have is the rapture cutting short the tribulation. The Great Tribulation is cut short by the rapture itself. So the rapture represents relief that Paul talked about, relief at the coming of the Lord. That's one part of the relief. But according to Daniel and according to the book of Revelation, time-wise, Antichrist is still alive. Even though the rapture takes place, it doesn't kill the Antichrist at the rapture, as far as Prewrathers ascertain. So then what ends up becoming necessary is that at the end of the day of the Lord, we have Jesus coming back with his angels at the second coming to destroy Antichrist. And it's only then that not only does Israel finally get her full relief, because she misses much of the rapture. She's not rapture ready at the beginning of the day of the Lord. But we also get this relief in the form of Antichrist being destroyed, the enemy of God, the enemy of the saints, the one who's been persecuting us and wearing us out and overcoming us as saints. He's finally destroyed at the second coming. So this is the additional relief that I talked about in my chapter here. So we had relief right here, but then we have significant relief right there. And I think that's necessary to see. Let's keep going. I've got 1 minute left in the hour-long study, but I'm at point number 28 of 30, and I think I can finish this. Dr. Brown says, in response to Pastor Walker, that speaking of Paul's wording about the relief and Jesus coming back, that's when he comes to be glorified by his saints. And HaNaviy says, given this direct reference from 2 Thessalonians 1:10, we Prewrathers naturally interpret this glorification as concurrent with the rapture event itself. Yeah, we both agree there. Point number 29 of Dr. Brown. As he appears in the sky for the world to see, remember Dr. Brown is refuting pre-trib theology. Dr. Brown is not refuting pre-wrath theology. It's HaNaviy who's providing not really a refutation so much as an additional details, like as if Dr. Brown gave the correct answer to Pastor Walker, who's a pre-tribber. Dr. Brown, the post-tribber, is answering the claims of pre-trib and correcting their mistaken theology with his more correct version of post-trib theology. And then HaNaviy's coming along and simply sharpening the post-tribbers just a little more. I'm not refuting it and throwing post-trib under the bus. I don't think that's necessary. I think we can retain a lot of what post-trib has to bring to the table, because a lot of it seems to be a necessary correction to so much of the inconsistencies that pre-tribbers bring to the table of destruction. Although they have some right points also. They're not completely out to lunch. But most of it is indefensible in my understanding. So it's necessary to have a post-trib discussion that answers a lot of those pre-trib inconsistencies. But then I think it's necessary one more step for the Prewrathers like myself to come along and help Dr. Brown see the things that he's not seeing. Dr. Brown says, as he appears in the sky for the world to see in awesome glory, speaking of Yeshua's return, by the way, he catches us up to meet him, and we with our transformed bodies descend together with our King. Now, notice what I'm about to say to Dr. Brown. This overall post-tribber description is consistent with a pre-wrath rapture of the church. Overall, if I zoom out and look at the parousia of Jesus, we Christians go up and we come back down. If I zoom out, that's what I'm talking about. It is true. We do go up, but then we come back down. We come back down because that's the language used in the Bible in many, many different places. We come back down with Yeshua so that we can populate the millennium with him. We don't stay up in heaven for 1,000 years while Israel's on the earth for 1,000 years. I've heard some, I think some pre-tribbers follow that model, but I don't follow it. We do go up and then we come back down. Classic post-tribbers and even post-trib Prewrathers, like the hybrid versions like Joel Richardson and possibly Dr. Brown, they do believe that we go up and then we come back down. This is kind of has become somewhat of a staple of post-trib theology is that we go up and then we come right back down. And one of the reasons they do this, I'm slowing down a little bit, but it's worth it. One of the reasons they talk about this is because when you look at this word parousia, it talks about a presence, a coming, an arrival, an advent, especially the second coming of Christ. There's this description in the lexicons. We're talking about Strong's number 3952, parousia. To be present, to arrive, to enter into a situation, properly coming, especially the arrival of the owner, who alone can deal with the situation. Parousia is a technical term with reference. Listen up. This is why I'm slowing down. Parousia is a technical term with reference to the visit of a king or some other official, a royal visit. And what ended up happening, and you can hear this explanation from post-tribbers, the likes of, say, John Piper, Joel Richardson will highlight this in his teachings, and you'll hear it from other post-tribbers, whether they be classic or hybrids. But all post-tribbers, or I should say the majority of them, seem to highlight this feature of the parousia, the single parousia. What they'll highlight is that this word parousia is used in the ancient Greek world to describe where the dignitary was going to come to a city. The people, having knowledge of this arrival, this coming, would not wait for the dignitary to come all the way to the city. In fact, once he approached the city limits, they would actually go out from their residences, go out to meet the dignitary at the edge of town, and then what? Escort him back into town. So they would go out, and then they would come back. They wouldn't go out and then go away. So it's very important for you to see this picture of the parousia. They would go out and they would come back. They would escort him back. And so in the model of the post-trib that says that we go up and then we come back down, the reason we go up is because we meet the Lord in the air. He's the dignitary. He's the official royal, right? He's the one coming to visit earth. He's coming, but we go up to meet him. And then what? We escort him right back down to earth. So in that bigger picture, I can follow that. Yeah, I agree with that. There's another word, though, that's not the only word. It's not only parousia. There's another one, not harpazo. That's where we get our word for rapture. Episnago, it's not that one. That's just a standard gathering with no reference to moving up and going back down. Paralambano, nope, it's not that one. That one just refers to a gathering together for a positive purpose, generally. Apantesis, yeah, check this one out. Strong's number 529. This one is kind of like a synonym to parousia. Apantesis, the act of meeting, to meet, a phrase seemingly almost technical. For what? For the reception of a newly arrived official. Let's go down a little bit further and see if some of the technical wording, and it talks about a friendly encounter. Okay, this version, let me see, I might click on the summary, see if it gives me more. All right, this particular tool doesn't tell me any more about this particular gathering, and let me just jump through some of the other ones to make sure it's not one of the other ones that I was getting it confused with. Apostasia, nope, and then the last one, Perilepo. Okay, Perilepo. All right, nope, it's not any of those. So let's go back to this one. The apantesis, it doesn't show it here, but if you have another tool that you can look at, and I'll see if I can find one in post-production and flash it for you on the screen in post. Basically, this description of apantesis is also similar to the parousia. It's a word used for the official who's coming to meet the people that he officiates over. You can see it there in the usage down below. Phrase, seemingly almost technical, for the reception of a newly arrived official. So it has the same concept of going out to meet him and then ushering him back into town. All right, so what's my point? Let's go back to what I was talking about. This overall post-tribber description is consistent with the pre-wrath rapture of the church. However, even though so in other words, an overall description, let me pause for a moment. This overall description is where Jesus comes down, hovers over planet Earth. He snatches us up to meet him in the rapture fashion and resurrection. We go up to meet him, but then we come right back down to earth. However, that's the overall picture. Zoomed out, that is what happens. It must happen. Understand when I say zoomed out. But now what happens if we zoom in? Now let me keep talking. However, even though we have not one but two culturally relevant Greek words that likely indicate that we should eventually descend together with our Lord, parousia coupled with apantesis. If I would have just kept reading, I would have seen it there. So we have these two words, parousia coupled with apantesis. So those are the two I just showed you. We have parousia here, Strong's 3952, and apantesis here, Strong's number 529. Both of these words in the ancient Greek usage of the words were often used to describe the arrival of an official, and the parousia one is the one that kind of shows that we're going to go out to meet him. So that's what I'm making reference to. So even though we do have these two, nevertheless, please listen up, post-tribbers, at the moment, okay? Listen up. Don't tune me out just yet. Nevertheless, the text does not say exactly when we will descend with our Lord. There are scattered passages describing God's coming with angels and holy ones, and others have Jesus coming with heaven's armies and or saints, i.e. 1 Thessalonians 3:13, coupled with Revelation 19:7, 8, and 14. But, listen up, taken together as a whole, unfortunately, none of them conclusively teach that the church will return with him at the parousia rapture / second coming. So not only do we not have who's coming back with him, other than what some say angels, some say holy ones, some say God's heavenly armies. In other words, some of them say saints, and I agree with there that the saints there usually refers to, almost always refers to believers. But others say holy ones, others say angels. And I know someone say, well, why not just say it's all of them? It's angels and saints. Yeah, I can agree with that too. What I'm trying to say is that taken together as a whole, unfortunately, none of them conclusively teach that the church will return to the parousia. But we do, I believe, given those two Greek words that in context seem to describe us going out to meet him and then us escorting him back, along with some other details that I might mention later on, but I'm not going to do now, then I could build a case for the church coming back with them. But does it have to be at what we call the second coming, where Jesus defeats the Antichrist? Doesn't have to be then. So I don't know exactly when the church must come back, but I do hold to a theology that the church does come back to earth, and that we do populate the millennium with Yeshua. So what I'm saying is that in the overview, yes, I think those two words are accurate. Parousia, apantesis, we do go up and we do come back. But the 2 points I'm trying to bring out to the post-tribbers are, one, it doesn't say when we come back, right? So we go up, we could stay in the heavenlies during the time of the day of the Lord. So let me show you the chart again. So what I would say is that we go up here at the rapture, and then where are we during the day of the Lord? We're up here in heaven doing heavenly things. There's some activities that we could describe, maybe the Bema Seat judgment and or the wedding supper of the Lamb or something. Those are up there. And then we come back down with Yeshua at second coming. He does battle with Antichrist. I don't know that we do battle. That kind of doesn't fit my understanding of what job description the church has, is to do battle with Antichrist. I don't find that in Bible, but we would come back to earth with them, but we wouldn't actually do the battling. Jesus does the battle. The angels and Jesus do the battling, but we do come back with them. But we come back out of heaven. So in my understanding, I'm hypothesizing, right? It's my hypothesis, my speculation, my assumption, my assertion. It's not provable at this point in time, but I think it has some traction. That we do go up during rapture, we stay in heaven to do those other things, and then we come back down. So we don't stay in heaven for 7 years, and we don't stay up there for eternity. We stay up there just long enough to avoid the day of the Lord. And there's some other activities that we take place in up there that the book of Revelation, as well as other parts of Paul, talk about. But we do eventually come back. So what's my point? I do still hold to a going up and a coming back. It's just that the Bible doesn't say what's the difference between these two events. But what you end up with in the post-trib model, go back and look at it. The post-trib model says that everything happens right at the same time, the going up and the coming back. They don't give any time frame for the day of the Lord to be played out. They're just smashed on top of one another. So this is where I disagree with this is where me and the post-tribbers pull away from each other, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing this particular smackdown, is to gently challenge the post-tribbers to give the book of Revelation a more natural consideration when it comes to the Day of the Lord activities, allow for the trumpets and the bowls to be poured out in a lengthy fashion that would separate rapture from wrath, but only in a, say, maybe 1 year time frame rather than a 7 year. All right, and then I think I'll close the very end, and then I'll close down the study. You can see point number 30, Dr. Brown says, yeah, it's wonderful. And HaNaviy says, yes, Dr. Brown, it is indeed. And that'll do it. I'm going to stop here with my Smackdown. What I've got lined up for you next week, let me maybe just bring it up and show you what it's going to end up looking like. It is, where is it? Smackdown Part 2. Is that my Word document? I don't want to do that. Well, I guess I haven't created the HTML version of it yet. But what I'm going to have is another version. Maybe I'll just click on it, open right now. I'll let you see it. I'll open up Microsoft Word, no problem. I didn't plan on doing this, but here we go. Posttrib Prewrath Rapture Smackdown Part 2. This is just kind of a preview. Hint, whoever wins, Pretrib loses. Mwah, right? My evil little LOL there. And it'll be a comparison chart of the classic post-tribulation rapture view and the Prewrath Rapture view, highlighting their key similarities and differences. And so I'm going to do that starting next week. I just put the same truths that we're talking about into kind of a chart form that's a little easier for some people to follow along with. But we'll do that next week. But so going back over to where I was before, yeah. But we did number 1. We finally finished it. Posttrib Prewrath Rapture Smackdown Part 1. And that'll do it for Eschatology, a biblical study of end time events.